ladies and gentlemen, or should I say bonsoir, it is time to discuss the season 3 premiere of the one and only Hannibal. So, spoiler alert, before we dive into the delicious and delectably mad thick of things, as I shall be bearing all in this review. So without further ado, let us get right into the mayhem, and I will tell you up front that if, in fact, there is anything major or glaring that I happen to miss in my review of this episode, I would love for you to present your offerings down in the comments, and we shall have some fun chats, inevitably. Man, did I miss this show, and words are simply not enough to convey how utterly I am in love with this beast that Bryan Fuller and company has wrought. And I have to tell you, if you are in fact a member of the Twitterverse, you love Hannibal, and you're not following Bryan Fuller, then I'm not entirely sure what to tell you other than that you need to rectify that situation immediately, because he is one of the best live tweeters as far as a showrunner, producer goes. I mean, his involvement with what is happening on the screen, especially if you're watching the episodes live, it is amazing. The commentary is fabulous, and he offers incessant glimpse into the making and creation of every single Ghastly episode. So I do encourage you guys to dig a little bit deeper into each and every meal that is served up weekly. You can do that through Bryan Fuller. He's gonna hook you up. But anyway, so you can also follow my live tweeting sessions, 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on my Twitter. There's a link below. But anyways, I am just, yet again, completely and utterly mesmerized, and I sit before the screen and I watch the show, and I feel oh so very much like Bedelia in that I do not entirely know what I am doing with myself and my body and mind, but I generally feel that I am still in control of my actions. But this show has bewitched me in a way that I do not fully know how to describe. And I know that others among you who love this show feel quite similarly. And I have to say that what I loved most about this episode was that it didn't simply dive right back into the fray in which we were left at the end of the second season. Rather than being thrust into the ambulance lights and sirens and figuring out the body count over at Hannibal's old place, we have switched straight from Boston to Paris to Florence, Italy. And I am going to be traveling to Italy this summer for the very first time. So this is the perfect way for me to get prepared for the kinds of things I'll encounter? Question mark. I mean, if I at least meet Gillian Anderson, I'm gonna take that honey out for some coffee or wine or whatever kind of liquid she needs to get in her system, which I can guarantee will not consist of human things. I will sit down and we'll have some good chats. Because something tells me that this therapist is in need of a little bit of therapy because of the guy who is in need of a little bit of therapy from her. And it's just this endless, horrific cycle. And really what we get to see so tragically in this episode is the subjugation of such a strong and gorgeous and cool as a cucumber woman. And we get to learn more about her as a person, and yet are invited to ask so many other questions about her. What it is that tethers her to Hannibal. Is there something beyond the way that he goes above and beyond to manipulate and to set the chessboard around him? And he has done that so impeccably with Bedelia. I mean, we even get to bend over backwards going into the past to that integral moment where she finds herself with her arm way the crap down her patient's neck. He is dead. And, you know, so begins the post-mortem life of Bedelia. She has died, essentially, in this moment. And yet Hannibal seems to offer her some form of redemption? Something of the sort. Salvation is what he seems to extend her way, as he tries to show her that, in fact, this was not merely an act of self-defense, but that she was very much in control and very much calculating what occurred in the death of her patient, a man who was under her care and also was Zachary Quinto, by the way. I don't know if you guys knew that, but Twitter enlightened me pretty quickly on the subject, so keep your eagle eyes in the game. There is much that can be missed. And at the same time, just the surreal and crazy dreamlike qualities of this episode so clearly conveyed the state that Bedelia is in, you know, especially with all the drippings around her when she sinks into the bath after watching the faucet just slowly drip, drip, drip. And then as she thrusts herself beneath the surface of the water, she is in an ocean, and that ocean, ladies and gentlemen, is Hannibal Lecter himself, in this world that he has wrought and has sown her into. And as the end of this episode seems to indicate, there is no easy way out, if any way out, for Bedelia. But then, of course, too, when she goes to visit the butcher's shop, or whatever that place is. She goes to get wine and other goods, and there's always something dripping. And the last time that she was there in the episode, it was this rabbit with the fur all still intact, hung upside down, and the blood drips from its nose. And we see this visible shudder from Bedelia, and good God, is Gillian Anderson at the top of her game. This woman is gorgeous on every possible level. I'm not just talking physical, but we see the pain, the fascination, the fear. I mean, we get such a full spectrum from this character who has garnered such immense interest since her introduction into the series, and now is running away with her loathsome lover and being asked whether she will observe or participate. And I think that when it comes to being in Hannibal's company, there's almost no way to be a bystander. You are implicit in whatever he does. And if you don't want to be, well, he's gonna make you want to be, because that is the way of the Lecter. So where we see him in this premiere is he has become a sort of curator at a museum in Italy, and is specifically giving lectures on Dante. So Dante's Inferno. Do a little Wikipedia search if you're not familiar with that tale. But of course, the devil himself, I think, is quite qualified to speak on such matters as hell. I'm just saying. And I would say that he perhaps belongs in and is the champion of the deepest circle of hell. I have no reservations in stating that. But just to see these artifices that Hannibal and Bedelia have set up in this new world, and how everything seems so lovely and cultured on the outside, but the violence is ever brewing within. Although Hannibal does comment earlier on in the episode, he's like, I haven't really killed many people since our residence here. Like, pat me on the back. I'm going on a diet. And then, of course, we have the situation with Anthony, who becomes a wee bit too curious about the affairs of Hannibal, which leads to that pivotal moment where it looks like Bedelia is at last making her escape. And she seems poised to make this betrayal after attending Hannibal's talk on Judas's betrayal of Jesus Christ in the biblical story. So that's a bit of bitter irony there. And of course, now in Hannibal's presence, she is yet again steeped even further in the murder business. Also, what I appreciated about this premiere was getting to delve further into the past and the situations that led up to this transition to Europe. Getting to see Bedelia's first encounter with Hannibal after the shenanigans go down at his manor. So she is sitting coolly at the bedside with her glass of liquor and a gun pointed straight at an undressed Hannibal. A little bit of fan service there. And in fact, Brian Fuller was tweeting about how apparently, this ain't coming from me, this is coming from the man upstairs. Mads Mikkelsen, I think is the correct pronunciation, wants a little bit more nudity in this season. I mean, maybe he just wants to grace us all with a sight of himself or whatever. I mean, this entire show is so provocative and stimulating on so many levels that I'm just like, the cinematography itself is enough to get my little heart going pitter-patter, shall we say. But yeah, so the way we get to see so many things happening at so many different layers, not going back to the scene of the most recent major crime that's still ringing in all of our minds, but seeing the new fabric and groundwork that Hannibal has laid, and how he is enmeshing yet another not quite innocent, but are not quite truly deserving soul in his machinations of doom and despair and fine dining. Which is just all that I ever wanted from quality television. I never would have known it before, but this show has me convinced in ways that I cannot begin to fathom. So we see all the themes of drowning, of loss, of self, and this, again, so many questions are answered but also opened here, and I just don't know where to begin. But man, it's just so incredible to see how the show has worked with its source material and has presented such a tangible and visceral visual identity. There is no show like this on the market. The fact that it is on standard cable television is beyond baffling to me, and I continue to be astounded at how grotesquely beautiful it is. That isn't something that's going to be letting up soon. And also, I have to say, one of my Twitter followers brought this to my attention, and I really want to share this with you guys. So my friend on Twitter, his username there is Nito Del Toro 1, number 1. He said, "You know who Bedelia reminded me of in this episode is Reek." And for those of you who are not familiar without spoilering, words are not coming to me right now. So Reek is a reference to Game of Thrones. And I really do want to say more, but basically this is a character who has his selfhood stripped away from him by the ultimate psychopath. And in so many ways, that is what we see happening with Bedelia. And what Hannibal does not do is subjugate her through sexuality. Of course, this is in his manipulation toolkit, and it's something that he uses. as he wines and dines with his dear guests and feasting companions. But really, it's all so very much on this psychological level, where at once he is never physically forcing or compelling Bedelia to accompany him, but is rather inviting her further down the rabbit hole, and she is at once curious herself, and I think has to, bring that dark shadow in herself forward in order to quite literally stomach what she is in the midst of. And it's just such a crazy power play relationship to witness, and it is not the first that we have seen on this show. Of course, Will Graham is due to be making a splashy return rather soon, and we're going to find out definitively who all made it. I am almost positive that, oh my goodness, names are not coming to me. Not Abigail. It's Will Graham's former lady love from the first season. I am so ashamed that her name is not in my mind at the moment, but, and then she was with Hannibal last season. Pretty sure that she's down for the count, but, it appears that everybody else is coming back in the flesh. I mean, I know how surreal this show gets, but I think that based on some of the previews we've seen for next week, they shall be making a return, and they shall be taking the bait and traveling afar to find the man of the hour. So, man, there's so much that I want to get into, so much that I am just awash in. I mean, I very much feel the sensation of drowning in all of this. And what's crazy to see too with Bedelia is when she is sitting at the train station and she, we see this scene of these security cameras, and she's looking at this camera that is watching her as if it is Hannibal who can see her, and just feeling this, it's not even mere voyeurism, but it is his godhood, Also, of course, I really, really, really want to discuss the flashback scenes with Eddie Izzard's character. So good to go back with, what is his name? Man, all the names are escaping me. I am so sorry. He's going to be Eddie Izzard. Yeah, we'll do that. It's Gable. Gable. And of Green Gables. I don't know. You guys know who I'm talking about. Eddie Izzard. So the scenes revolving around his character, who we saw his limbs consumed by both Hannibal and himself last season, but this time around we get to go into things a little bit further in the foreshadowing of the comeuppance that Hannibal is ultimately going to receive, and how, Eddie's character is constantly posing these questions of, I wonder what you will taste like. I wonder how all of this is going to go down for you, because he is quite convinced that Hannibal is going to meet the very same kind of fate, which is crazy to see. I love the black and white coloration that we got with some of those flashbacks. Not all were bathed in black and white, but it does give it such an interesting quality, and I could watch the entire show in black and white, because there's so much that's so fascinating about the way that things are done and commanded, that it's like, do whatever you want, man. That is fine by me. And so people are either seeing that as actual flashbacks, or like conversations that are going on in Hannibal's mind is something else that I've seen people talking about. And I think that we are to maybe understand them as flashbacks, because we have gotten some of those with Bedelia and Hannibal. But it's interesting to see too the ways in which Hannibal sets people on the path of consuming themselves, which seems to be his trajectory generally for Bedelia. Now, as to the next phase that his relationship with Will Graham is going to take, well, love doesn't end so easily. Something that I have found to be true. And I think that the two of them may very well discover, even in the midst of recent atrocities. And there is this communal thing that Hannibal has got going on. He needs people to witness him in all of his glory. And I find interesting too how he iterates his belief about cannibalism, and what he says is that it isn't cannibalism unless the two are equals. And of course, he believes himself to be some sort of god on earth, and thus can eat as he pleases, without any semblance of guilt, only concern for the aesthetics. I also really enjoyed the opening scene with Hannibal on his motorcycle, baby. Got a little bit of Wolverine vibes, but the music was just so creepy that it felt like this was the opening to a horror film, and in so many ways, Hannibal is an immaculate horror production. This coming from somebody who does not generally enjoy the horror genre. Most horror movies, I'm not about that life. I enjoy the thriller and psychological end of things, which Hannibal delivers so well. But there's so much that's so brutal and so terrifying, and as much as I can't blame people for avoiding the show on the account of its violent content, the way that it is so meaningfully dealt with, the way that it is presented is just it's too good to pass up. So, tell your friends, send them a little invite. And the beauty that surrounds all this insanity too is just mind-numbing to me. And I can't wait to see what else this season is going to offer. But any other major things that I'm missing in this review, I'd be happy for you guys to fill in the blanks below. But oh man, the way that Hannibal conquers a mind is a sight to behold. And we are still just at the tip of the iceberg in that respect. It's just crazy. Just crazy to see this cannibal strutting about in the heart of so much culture and finery. And it's just the perfect stage to set for what all is to transpire. And as the world begins to close in on Hannibal, what better place for him to, let it all hang out. This is truly his domain. And so quite a fascinating entry point into the season, with an exclusive focus on Hannibal and Bedelia, with a little bit of the doctor whose name I cannot recall, Eddie Izzard. Oh man, I promise you that I'm going to be so much more on top of this next week, but thank you so much for tuning into my review. It has been a pleasure. It will be a pleasure. We will go through this together, ride and die together. And as always, I will be back before you know it.